What if aging was never your enemy? What if the years you fear are not chains pulling you down, but rhythms you were never taught how to move with? Imagine life not as a race against the clock, but as a song one, where your body, mind, and soul are instruments waiting to be tuned. Most of us live as if time is stealing something from us. Every wrinkle feels like a loss. Every restless night like proof that the clock is winning. But Edgar Cayce, called the sleeping prophet, saw it differently. He revealed that meditation is not an escape from life, but an attunement. Like a musician adjusting strings before a performance, meditation brings the soul back in tune with its eternal rhythm. And here's the question that may change how you see your own life. If time is just a rhythm, what happens when you finally learn how to flow with it? Cayce believed that in that harmony, you don't just slow aging, you begin to live outside of time itself. Before we go deeper, take a moment to ground yourself here with me. If this message resonates so far, I invite you to stay until the end of this journey. And if you find something stirring in you, don't just watch, be part of the conversation. Share your own experience below, because the way you felt time pressing on your life may be the same story someone else needs to hear. Now, let's talk about the weight most of us carry in silence, the quiet exhaustion of modern living. Aging doesn't always show up first in the mirror. It shows up in the nights we can't sleep, the mornings we wake already tired, and the endless rush of days that leave us feeling hollow. We try to keep up another cup of coffee, another late night, another promise that things will slow down eventually. But deep down, we know the years are not what's draining us. It's the constant noise inside, the relentless demands, the loss of stillness. You may have felt it yourself, not the kind of aging you can count on a calendar, but the heavy kind, the one that makes your soul feel older than your body. That moment when you look in the mirror, and it's not the lines on your face that unsettle you, but the dullness in your eyes, that sense that joy has been replaced with duty, that wonder has been replaced with worry. And here's the truth that Edgar Cayce hinted at long before science began to confirm it: the soul does not age. What grows tired, what collapses under the weight of stress, is the mind and the body when they lose their rhythm with the deeper self. Think about the last time you felt truly alive. Maybe it was standing at the ocean. Maybe it was listening to a song that carried you back in time. Maybe it was a quiet morning when the world seemed to pause. In that instant, you didn't feel old. You didn't feel rushed. You felt whole. Those glimpses reveal something profound. Aging is not just biology. It is a spiritual condition. And when the soul is cut off from its own vitality, life feels shorter, harder, and less meaningful than it truly is. This is the silent epidemic of our age. People are living longer on paper, but many feel like they are dying on the inside. Anxiety, loneliness, and constant stress make the days feel heavier, and the future feel uncertain. We measure health by the body, but we rarely ask, what about the health of the spirit? Because when the spirit is weary, even youth feels old. And when the spirit is alive, even the body that bears wrinkles can shine with a timeless light. Cayce's insight was not that meditation gives you more years, but that it gives you back the years you've already lost to worry. It returns you to the place where your soul has always been ageless. And that's where our journey begins, by learning to shift from merely surviving time to actually flowing with it. Thank you for staying with me this far. I know your time is precious, and the fact that you're still here tells me something important. You're not just curious, you're searching. You want more than information. You want transformation. And that is exactly where Edgar Cayce comes in. Cayce was called the sleeping prophet, not because he dreamed idle dreams, but because in a state of deep trance, he tapped into what he believed to be the universal mind, a place where the soul's wisdom speaks clearly. He gave over 14,000 readings. And while many people know him for prophecies or stories of past lives, what often goes unnoticed is his steady emphasis on meditation. To Cayce, Meditation was not a luxury, not an escape, but the essential act of what he called attunement. He compared it to tuning an instrument. You wouldn't expect a violin to produce a beautiful sound if its strings were tight on one side and loose on the other. In the same way, how can our lives resonate with clarity and harmony if our inner strings are left untouched and unbalanced? When Cayce spoke about attunement, he wasn't offering a technique with steps and numbers. He was offering a way of living. Attunement means bringing the mind, the body, and the soul back into rhythm with one another, and beyond that, into rhythm with the divine. In his view, we are not just flesh and thoughts, we are spirit clothed in matter. The body gets sick, the mind grows weary, but the spirit remains unbroken, always singing. Meditation was the bridge, the daily act of remembering that song and letting it retune the rest of us. Think about what happens when you actually hear an instrument out of tune. Even if you're not a musician, something in you recoils. You feel unsettled. That is exactly what happens when we live out of balance. Stress, resentment, endless distraction. These are the sour notes that make life feel heavy and discordant. Cayce's answer was simple but profound. Go back to the silence. Open yourself in prayer. Let the vibrations of your own voice or your own stillness resonate. And gradually, the inner strings find their way back into harmony. And when they do, something remarkable happens. Time itself seems to loosen its grip. You stop feeling rushed by the hours and start experiencing the depth of the moment. Cayce often reminded people that meditation was not just for monks or mystics. It was for the farmer before the day's work, the mother exhausted after caring for her children, the business person weighed down by responsibility. He believed anyone, regardless of background, could access the peace that waits within. And in that peace, there is renewal not just of mood, but of life force itself. When you are attuned, the body heals more easily, the mind clears, the soul expands. This is why he tied meditation directly to longevity. It wasn't about stretching the calendar. It was about restoring the flow of vitality that makes life worth living at any age. So, when we talk about meditation for longevity through Cayce's eyes, we're not talking about escaping the world or floating away from reality. We're talking about coming back to the source, back to balance, back to the eternal rhythm that has always been present, but often drowned out. Attunement is not something foreign to you. It's the moment you step outside and feel the wind quiet your mind. The moment a single breath reminds you that you are alive. The moment you feel gratitude rise for no reason at all. Cayce believed those moments could be cultivated, practiced, and lived every single day until the soul, the mind, and the body once again play in tune with eternity. And maybe you're beginning to sense it already. The real secret to longevity is not hidden in laboratories or miracle creams, but in the way we choose to live each day. Cayce made it clear, aging is not conquered by chasing after a perfect body. It is softened and reshaped when we nourish a higher ideal. That's the shift. Instead of obsessing over how the body looks, ask what the soul is living for. When you wake up with a guiding ideal, life takes on a different rhythm. Your choices carry meaning. Your struggles are not just burdens, but part of a larger song. Think about what happens when we try to fight time. We buy, we measure, we compare. Every wrinkle becomes a battle, every birthday a defeat. And yet the harder we push, the more exhausted we become, like a musician forcing notes from an instrument that hasn't been tuned. The sound is harsh. The song falls apart. But when we stop fighting and instead learn to attune, the music changes. The same violin, the same strings, once tuned, suddenly sing with beauty. The years don't disappear, but they become part of a melody instead of a sentence. This is how Cayce described the relationship with time, not as an enemy to conquer, but as a rhythm to harmonize with. Living in harmony with time means learning to step back from the panic of aging and into the depth of being. It means understanding that the body will change, but the soul can stay young through its connection to love, gratitude, and service. Cayce often urged people to hold an ideal something larger than themselves, something that gives life a reason beyond survival. When you live for an ideal, time no longer feels like sand slipping away. It feels like waves carrying you forward. That shift alone reduces stress, restores balance, and creates the inner conditions for longevity. Modern life tempts us to believe that youth can be bought, that vitality comes in bottles, that meaning can be manufactured. But Cayce's wisdom cuts through that illusion. He invites us to see that the true fountain of youth is spiritual alignment. When you are in tune, when you pray, when you meditate, when you serve, when you forgive, your body responds. Your nervous system quiets. Your heart steadies. Your energy rises. And suddenly, age is not a prison. It is simply the shape through which your soul continues to express itself. The irony is beautiful the more you resist time, the older you feel, the more you harmonize with it, the more timeless you become. That is Cayce's gift to us, a reminder that longevity is not about resisting life, but about embracing it fully, deeply, and with a sense of purpose. To live long is not to stretch the years, but to deepen the moments until they become eternal. Edgar Cayce believed that meditation for longevity rested on 3 living pillars, 3 practices that anyone could hold to, no matter their age, background, or struggles. These weren't rigid techniques with steps to follow like a manual. They were more like currents of energy, guiding the soul back to its own timeless strength. The first pillar is what Cayce called the ideal. To him, every person needs a guiding star, a statement of purpose that keeps them aligned with something greater than daily survival. Without an ideal, life feels random, reactive, easily drained. With an ideal, even ordinary actions become infused with meaning. It could be as simple as choosing peace, or love, or kindness as the compass for your day. When you wake each morning and affirm that ideal, you are planting a seed of vitality that grows silently within you. The second pillar is vibration sound, resonance, the mysterious language of the universe. Cayce often spoke about the healing power of vowels, but the deeper point is that sound is life itself. Every word, every tone, every prayer creates ripples in the body and in the soul. You felt it before a song that brings tears, a voice that calms you, a chant that stirs something ancient inside. Cayce understood that when you allow your own voice, your own breath, to resonate with sincerity, you are not just making sound, you are retuning the instrument of your being. This is why sound can soften the grip of stress, soothe the nerves, and restore vitality. It reminds your body of the harmony it was created to live in. The third pillar is silence. Not the awkward silence of absence, but the living silence that restores. In the modern world, we fill every gap with noise, but Cayce taught that silence is the place where the soul is reborn. He said it was in silence that we rediscover youth, not of the body, but of the spirit. When you let the noise fade, when you sit still long enough to hear what has been waiting all along, you find that your soul has not aged a day. Silence is where the timeless self comes forward, and it is there that true longevity is found. These 3 pillars holding an ideal, resonating with vibration, and dwelling in silence form the foundation of Cayce's path to a life that feels whole and enduring. They are not complicated. They don't demand hours of your time. They simply ask for sincerity. And as you begin to weave them into your life, you may notice something subtle but undeniable. You feel lighter, steadier, more alive, as though the years are no longer pressing you down, but lifting you up. If this vision speaks to you, take a moment before we continue. Pause the rush of scrolling, breathe, and reflect on what your own guiding ideal might be. And if you feel moved, share that word or phrase in the comments below. You might be surprised how many others are searching for the same light. And maybe you're wondering what this really looks like in someone's life. Principles sound inspiring, but the question is, can they actually touch the way we live and feel each day? Let me share with you a story. Because sometimes a single human journey says more than theory ever could. There was a woman in her mid-50s. By all accounts, she had lived responsibly raising children, working hard, doing everything the world told her she should. But inside, she felt like she was fading. Nights brought shallow sleep. Mornings arrived with a heaviness that coffee could not erase. And her reflection in the mirror seemed to whisper that her best years had already passed. She wasn't just getting older on paper. She felt like time was draining the life out of her. When she first encountered Cayce's teachings, she didn't expect a miracle. She only hoped for a little peace. But as she began to experiment with the 3 pillars, choosing a daily ideal, letting her own voice resonate with simple tones, and giving herself permission to sit in silence, something began to shift. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, like the quiet turning of a season. She described it as though a fog she had lived in for years was slowly beginning to lift. Within weeks, her nights softened. She no longer dreaded lying down, because silence was no longer emptiness, but a place of comfort. Mornings came with a steadier energy, not because her body had rewound to youth, but because her spirit remembered its own timelessness. One evening, journaling by her bedside, she wrote words that have stayed with me. I didn't become 10 years younger. I simply realized I had never lost the youth of my soul. That line captures what Cayce meant by longevity. It is not about stretching the body into shapes it cannot hold, but about returning to a depth of life that cannot be measured in numbers. Her family began to notice too. They said her laughter sounded lighter, her patience longer, her presence somehow brighter. What had changed was not her age, but her alignment. She had tuned her strings again, and the music of her being was playing clearly. And this is where Cayce's wisdom proves itself, not just in ideas, but in lived experience. When the soul remembers its rhythm, the body follows, the mind settles, and life itself regains its vitality. It may not add decades to the calendar, but it adds eternity to the moment. And in the end, isn't that what we're truly longing for? Not more years, but more life in the years we already have. For many, stories like this feel inspiring, but still raise the question, does any of this hold up beyond personal experience? And the answer is yes. Modern science has been slowly catching up to what Edgar Cayce was pointing toward almost a century ago. Today, neuroscientists and physicians agree that meditation doesn't just change how we feel, it changes the body itself. Stress hormones begin to fall, heart rate steadies, blood pressure lowers, and brain scans show new patterns of calm emerging where anxiety once ruled. Even more, regular practice strengthens the immune system, helping the body repair itself in ways medicine alone cannot explain. Sleep researchers now confirm that a quieting of the nervous system leads to deeper rest, and deeper rest leads to longer life. Psychologists find that meditation rewires attention, making people more resilient to everyday pressures. What Cayce called attunement is now seen in labs as a measurable shift in brainwaves and heart rhythms, proof that silence, breath, and vibration are not just mystical ideas, but biological realities. And yet, Cayce never claimed to be a scientist. He simply listened in trance, and what he spoke then has become what science observes now. That is the beauty of it. He was pointing to truths that modern language would later translate into data. Where researchers talk about the parasympathetic nervous system, Cayce talked about harmony. Where medicine speaks of reduced inflammation, Cayce spoke of peace-restoring balance. 2 languages, 1 reality. This is why his message still matters. It reminds us that longevity is not a choice between spirituality or science, but the meeting of both. The practices that calm the soul also heal the body, and the healing of the body reinforces the peace of the soul. Cayce saw it long before the evidence arrived, and today the evidence simply proves what wisdom already knew, that we are not meant to live against time, but in tune with it. When people hear the phrase 30-day practice, they often imagine a strict routine with clocks and checklists. But Cayce's vision was gentler, more organic, less about counting days, and more about planting symbols in the soul. Think of it not as a calendar, but as a garden. Each stage of this journey carries an image, and those images are what stay with you long after the days have passed. The first stage is the seed. This is the moment you choose your ideal, your guiding purpose, and plant it in the soil of your daily life. It doesn't need to be dramatic. Sometimes a single word is enough: peace, love, compassion, courage. A seed is small, but within it lives an entire future. The second stage is the sprout. As you begin to give attention to your ideal, through simple moments of reflection, sound, or silence, you notice the first signs of change. Just as a sprout pushes through soil, your spirit begins to push through the weight of routine and distraction. These are the fragile beginnings of vitality returning. The third stage is the tree. Roots deepen, branches spread, and the practice becomes steady. Silence is no longer strange, it becomes a refuge. Your ideal stops being words on a page and begins to shape your choices, your tone of voice, the way you carry yourself. You are no longer forcing growth, you are living it. And the fourth stage is the fruit. This is where the practice ripens into service, forgiveness, and presence. You start to notice how others feel lighter in your company, how your patience extends, how your gratitude spills into everyday interactions. The fruit is not just for you, it nourishes those around you. That is the true sign of longevity, not simply surviving longer, but giving life more freely. So the 30 days are not about perfection, not about ticking boxes. They are a path of remembering. With each stage: seed, sprout, tree, fruit, you rediscover that the soul has never lost its youth. The body may shift, the years may pass, but the inner garden can remain forever in bloom. And when you live from that place, time no longer feels like something running out, it feels like something overflowing. Before we close, I want to invite you to do more than just listen. I want you to experience this for yourself. Wherever you are right now, take a moment to pause. Let the rush of the day set itself aside. Place one hand gently over your heart, not as a ritual, but as a reminder that life is still pulsing within you. Now, whisper quietly, or simply think of one word that you want to guide you today. Peace, love, forgiveness, strength. Whatever speaks to you, let that word rest inside your chest as though it were a light glowing softly in the dark. Imagine that with every breath, the glow expands, filling your body, reaching your mind, and surrounding you with warmth. If you choose, let a sound rise from within, a hum, a sigh, even just the vibration of your own breath. Feel how that sound moves through your chest like ripples across water. You don't need to do anything more. Just notice how alive you are in this simple act of being present. And now, let yourself fall into silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of fullness. A silence that holds you like the earth holds the seed, steady and safe. Rest there for a moment. This is what Cayce meant by attunement, the place where body, mind, and soul remember they were never separate. When you return from this pause, you may find that nothing around you has changed, and yet everything feels lighter. That is the gift of even the smallest taste of attunement. It doesn't take hours, and it doesn't require perfection. Just a moment of presence, and suddenly you remember that the soul has never aged. As we come to the end of this journey, Remember this simple truth: the body may carry years, but the soul does not. Edgar Cayce reminded us again and again that a person who lives by an ideal will never know the aging of the spirit. Wrinkles may form, hair may grey, but the inner fire remains untouched when it is fed by purpose. That is the real longevity, not just surviving longer, but living deeper, with every breath infused with meaning. You cannot stop the hands of the clock from turning, but you can stop your soul from growing silent. You can choose to let it keep singing, to let gratitude rise, to let forgiveness soften you, to let service carry you beyond yourself. Time cannot steal that music. In fact, it only makes it richer. The way a well-played instrument sounds warmer with age. Picture a candle burning in the night. The darkness may surround it, but it cannot extinguish the flame. That flame is your spirit. As long as you return to it, nurture it, and let it shine, you will live outside of time. And when others look at you, they may see years, but they will also feel something greater, a presence that feels ageless, a soul that feels eternal. So take this with you. Longevity is not counted in numbers. It is measured in the light you carry. Live with your ideal, stay attuned to your inner song, and you will find that time no longer diminishes you. It expands you. And in that expansion, you discover what Cayce saw so clearly: a life that is not bound by the years, but lifted beyond them. If you've made it here, thank you for walking this path with me. That alone tells me you're ready for more than just listening. You're ready to begin. So here's a simple invitation. Take a moment right now and think of the ideal you want to carry into your life. Maybe it's peace, maybe it's love, maybe it's forgiveness. Whatever it is, share that word in the comments below. You never know who might need to see it, who might draw strength from your choice. And if this message has spoken to you, I'd love for you to stay connected. Subscribe so you can keep exploring Cayce's timeless wisdom with me. And so together, we can build a community of souls who believe that life is more than years, it is meaning, harmony, and light. Every time you return, you're not just watching a video, you're adding your own note to a larger song. One that reminds us all that the soul was never meant to grow old.